I'm pleased to introduce the person who came the furthest today. I don't think we have a prize for the person who came the furthest, Robert, but Robert Mori is president of IPMA, International Project Management Association, and this will be the 5th year that we have had representatives from IPMA come and speak to us as a keynote. Well, you can come fix his presentation now. And
thank you, Jim.
Texas.
Thank you very much, Jim. Good morning. Buongiorno. First of all, let me thank Jim and the University of Dallas and our friend David Pels for inviting me to this outstanding place. When I was invited, of course, I took it as an honor before of any other consideration. And I would like to underline that I am representative of the oldest, as Jim said, Project Management Association, but probably, Jim, I am also the oldest one in the room. But this is an exception because in IPMA, all our members, as Shirley said, IPMA also, we work as volunteers, are much younger than me, starting from my colleague in the executive board, Stacy Goff, who is here as well. So when I was asked to come here, I asked myself, yes, I am honored and will be a pleasure to be there, but to say what? Because in this outstanding university and in front of such an outstanding and professional audience, and I say without any need to please you, because the number of hands that you lift when Shirley asked how many of you are certified is evidence of the professional level of the audience. So I said, what can I do? And as a matter of fact, what should I add after the presentation made by Shirley about the project management strategies and so on? So I thought that I could only bring some experiences of mine, because in my long career I have always been involved in managing projects, industrial projects, to a certain level of complexity worldwide, and therefore I got some kind of experience. And for those of my age, when we started from managing project, I remember that when I was younger, the first time that my managing director asked me, Mr. Mori, from tomorrow you will be the project manager of this project. I didn't even know what project management meant. And at that time there were no so many training courses and so on. So most of the small things that I have learned in some decades, they are coming from on-site, on-the-job learning. So I said I could bring some kind of this experience that I got in this project, not referring to the methodologies and the technologies and so on, but just to the point that, in my opinion, and also in IPMA opinion, could make the difference between the success and unsuccess, or maybe in some cases also failure of the project. So first of all, who I am and where I'm coming from a professional point of view. I have a number of years of experience in managing projects in many countries for an important overall cumulative value. The countries where I worked on are United States. I worked in the early 80s in Pittsburgh for a project in the iron and steel field, in Iran, in Libya, in the United Arab Emirates, in Trinidad, in Venezuela, and some others. This type are the project, the kind of project, industrial project for mainly relating to the iron and steel technologies, the steel shops and niche technologies in that areas. Particular, this is, of course, the picture is not very clear, is a project in Libya. Just to give you an idea, the size of this area is 7 kilometers by 3. And the last project that we were involved in over there was the evacuation of some 150 people last February when the combats and the war started over where. This latter, you may have read, that was one of the places with heavier combats and problems due to the war. This is another project, the same size in Iran, again a steel complex. And in addition to these other types of projects, this piece of equipment is the one that arrived at site. The site was Trinidad in the Caribbean Sea. But what should have been arrived is this one. And, this is what you said before, is just this lower part. All the upper part disappeared in the Atlantic Ocean. And this was a very peculiar project where Mr. Murphy showed all his power, because as a matter of fact we wrote an article saying Mr. Murphy meets the industrial engineering plans. But even though the project was not that big as the other ones, the experience gained on this kind of aspect was very much important. So the company for which I work is as these figures. This decrease of the income in the past 2 years, of course, is due to the economic crisis, but also to the fact that Mr. Chavez, the president of Venezuela, at a certain day decided that a company of ours over there was too good and too profitable to be left under control of private and foreign hands, and therefore he decided to nationalize. These are also problems that we face when managing projects. This is my company, the one that is in charge of building and realizing plans for the iron and steel industry. And these are the business units into which it is divided. Well, when managing this kind of project during my career, I often, and my company, often met and faced problems coming from a wide lack of knowledge, of skills, of mentality in all our stakeholders, suppliers, subcontractors, customers, stakeholders in general, partners, as far as the project management skills are concerned. And therefore, of course, these problems and this lack of mentality and of skills reflected in problems regarding the deliverables of our projects. Delays, additional costs, claims, and so on. So, when facing day by day these problems, I asked myself, what should we do or could we do to try to reduce this lack of mentality and of skill? And at a certain point, I came in contact with PMI, with IPMA, with the Associations of Project Management, and at the end I decided that, to my understanding, IPMA would be the best possibility to provide and to try to enhance these skills and these competencies in the world of our stakeholders, mainly because of the competencies, the personal competencies aspect. because methodologies are widely known, widely used. Shirley has shown us all the standards that are available, and that are certainly a must, certainly must be known by all the project managers, by all the members of project management teams. But in this challenging world that we are living in these years, and even more in the future, these methodologies might not be enough to pursue the success of our challenging projects. We need something more. And the something more is, of course, the competencies, the behavioral and human competencies, in my view and IPMA views. Of course, I will not enter into details of what IPMA does. IPMA is aligned, as PMI does, with a number of activities, with the main aim of promoting project management skills. This is the IPMA world, and new countries every year are joining IPMA. We are following advanced certification, education training, awards, research, young crew. Young crew is one of the most important projects that we have, because the younger people are the future, not only of the profession of project management. This is the product for the assessment of the organization from the point of view of their performance in project management. World congresses, as the one that the PMI has, and let me remind the next World Congress that will be held in Brisbane in the first half of next October. And the theme you may see is delivering the promise. That's a promise itself. And so those of you who might be in that area, those period might be willing to join this important conference. And so our aim as PMI's one is to move the society forward, because all of us, irrespective of the profession, irrespective of our field of activities, are dealing daily with projects. Not only you who are PMP certified or all other project managers, but any of us, any component of the society, any day has to deal with projects. And I am very happy from a personal point of view to see that almost 50%, if not more, of the audience is composed by ladies. Because I always say that the ladies are the best project managers in the world by default. Because all the projects that the ladies are managing in the private and in the professional life give evidence of how good project management they are. And I think that all of us have to learn, looking at our ladies, at our daughters, at our sisters, how they behave in the practical things. Now, Shirley has underlined the challenges that we have to face. And for all people dealing with projects, working group environment are becoming more and more complex. Critical need for interpersonal skills. Growing number of multinational projects. It is difficult, or in any case, there are not the majority of the projects that can be completely implemented in one country. In the United States, maybe it is a difference because you are such a big country. It is the number country in the world that you may have a project within the states and without boundaries. But this is an exception. And in any case, I know that also many of you are involved in projects that are multinational and not only national ones. Multicultural influence on project products. It is very difficult if
almost impossible now that for any project of even medium size or medium complexity, we cannot have a multicultural team dealing and implementing that project. Technological dependence, of course, all the projects have technological needs and demands, and the technology is demanding higher and higher skills. And last but not least, increasing need of transparency and accountability. Apart from the technological dependence, all the other aspects call to the stage the human behaviors, the human skills, the human factors. Those that cannot be defined in a structured way like any other methodologies that we are using in our project. In my opinion, the behavioral competencies based also on the experience gained during my professional life play a major roles are these ones. The competence to manage and to handle multicultural diversities. Reliability, personal and company and team reliability. Creativity, consistency, passion, and persistence. We will go one by one. Multicultural diversities, we need a kind of cultural compass to understand which are the differences of the behaviors. Because by culture, what do we mean? The collective programming of the mind which distinguishes the behaviors of one group from another one. Of course, within one group there are differences between the individuals, but there are general schemes that within the group, because of this programming that due to our education, to our culture, in our company, in our family, in our country, we get, there are general aspects that are identifying all of the members of one community. And we need to understand and exploit all these multicultural patterns. One means that could be useful to this purpose, there are many. I have also yesterday attended some presentation of yours, and you referred to other systems to identify these cultural differences, is this Hofstede's 5 cultural dimensions. Hofstede, as you know, is a so-called cultural anthropologist from Netherlands, a Dutch guy, who studied the behaviors of the different populations and found 5 main parameters of dimensions: power distance, individualism, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and masculinity. We will not enter, of course, into the details, it's not the purpose of the presentation, but just to say that when we start to work in a country or with a culture that we don't know, it's better that we try to understand beforehand which are the features of that culture, of that population, in order to exactly understand which are their values, which are their behaving patterns. Power distance means whether the power is very far from the major part of the population, or whether there is not much distance between the power and the majority of the people. Individualism or collectivism, of course, is intuitive, what could be. Masculinity versus femininity. Masculinity needs for material success, femininity caring for quality of life and preference for relationship. Uncertainty avoidance. There are people who are very much discomfortable with the uncertainty. They would like to have everything clearly defined and planned beforehand, and people who are not much discomforted if there is changes continuously. Long term versus short term is the same intuitive one. So all these 5 parameters are evaluated in a quantitative way, and you may see for each country which are the rated values coming from assessment, from experience, from comparison. And you may see that considering that the highest value is 100, with just one exception, that is that one for China, because it is really something that is absolutely exceptional, you may see the difference for each of those characteristics or parameters between the different countries. Well, just having a look at the table like that, when we started to work with a new country that we don't know, this gives just an idea how are the differences between that culture and ours. And so we can try to start to understand how to behave in order to better exploit the differences instead of going conflicting with them because we don't know each other. And in the multinational project, this is something that could often happen. For instance, the so-called BRIC group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, the new emerging countries, you may see that we talk to them all together as the BRIC group, but the difference inside them are very high. Therefore, the culture is like an iceberg, mostly hidden, and it is our duty, task as project managers, as team leaders, to try to understand what is in the hidden part, in order to get advantage of this and not to have conflicts deriving from the lack of knowledge. So we need mental openness, focus on persons, recalling that all our stakeholders are persons, because before them being firms, companies, organizations, consultancies, and so on. And autonomous judgment. Yesterday, Kevin Christ made a presentation about the risk for the project to be killed by the democracy rules, by the search for consensus. Sometimes the decision must be taken, and sometimes the decision must be taken by the project manager, even if we don't know if it is the right decision or not. And maybe that it will be the wrong one, because the projects, as we all know, any project is a prototype. There are not be 2 projects equal to each other. And by definition, being a prototype, a project is also a kind, I would say, of mistakes factory. We cannot avoid making mistakes in the project. And therefore, we have to assume the risk of mistakes. But we have also to assume the risk to learn from the mistake and to put the mistake to the knowledge and be shared with the team and with the company. And when the time comes and the decision must be taken, we should take the decision, even if we don't have consensus, provided that we are entitled by our power or authority to take that decision, of course. Sense of responsibility. And possibly, if we can reach this stage of what we could say a cultural empathy. It is difficult to be in the same line as our stakeholders with completely different cultures, but to understand their culture and to let them understand ours, and to try to get the best by the conjunction of the two. And, as you know, one of the main problems when dealing with different cultures is the language. You are lucky because your language is spoken all over the world, and all the international contracts are written in your language, even if they are within contractual partners who are not of English mother language. But it is also true that English is not one. There are so many English. There is your English, there is the UK English, there is the Canadian English, there is the Australish, there is the Spanglish, there is the Goblish, there is the Indian English, there is at the lower level the Tanglish, and so on. And this is a point not only in the relationship between people, but when dealing with the contract. I remember when the contract in India, of course it was in English, and we had an Indian consultant, so we are Indians, Libyans, Italians, and there were a lot of, I would say, almost all the main contractors at the time in the world were going there. And because that project was a project of $6 billion at the beginning of the 80s overall, divided into a number of contractors. Well, when we were going to the meeting, but also the technical meetings, not only the contractual ones, at a certain point we were going with the English dictionary in our hands. The English dictionary, not the translation to English to Italian or to French or to German or to Libyan or to Arabic, but just the English to English. And it happened several times to me that discussing about the meaning of words like building, like personal belongings. I was opening my Webster, and on the other part they are opening their Oxford. No, it is different. This is not the meaning. The meaning is that one. And I remember two particular problems deriving from the language. Claim. We all project managers use the word claim every day. Claim for delay, claim for additional services, and so on. Well, in the Arab culture, claim is a bad word. They interpret claim as if we are asking money to them that is not due to us. I remember the first time that in Abu Dhabi, for a project over there, they were delaying and delaying and delaying the client, and I was making a claim for additional time, for extension of time. I wrote a very good letter, 3 pages, of course corrected by those who speak well English, by the lawyers and so on, and I submitted my letter sure that they could not say anything against. They should say yes. The next day I received a reply: "Dear sirs, your request is groundless. Best regards." They didn't even read my letter. So I wonder why. At a certain point, starting to understand the culture, they say, because the subject of the letter was claim. You have to find another way, because if you ask for claim, they will reply the next day, no, without reading what we are saying. So at the end, we said that we were proposing a final settlement of accounts in order to reach a joint understanding of the project, and in this way they accepted to discuss, just changing the words. In the same project, we had a very tough problem because of the term universal. We were supposed to provide a testing equipment for engines, and the specification called for the fact that the testing equipment should be universal type, meaning that it should be able to test all the engines that were in that company or in that organization. When we submitted the specification for approval, they say, no, universal means universal. So all the existing engines, we understood that as all the existing engines on the market. So we tried to make a survey on all the engine manufacturers all over the world, starting from Korea to United States and so on. And we just made some modification to this piece of equipment, and we went back for approval, hoping that at that time no problem would be there. And again the reply was no, because it is universal. And we said, yes, it is universal. And we showed to them all of these manufacturer specifications and so on. And said, no, but what about the new engine that will be built tomorrow? You should be able to test also that one, because it is universal. So universal even for the future. So you may imagine how this went on, and we had some $10 million connected to this universal definition. At the end, you know that sometimes it happens that in the project, to get out of big problems, we have to refer to the sponsor. And in this case, the sponsor was the son of the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi. And we had to go to him to try to get out of this universal definition. That is not so easy, because probably it's easier to go to the Prince Charles of England than to the son of the Sheikh over there. And we could succeed just because of the fact that one friend of ours, by chance, was, and who by chance was, and I still think is from Dallas, was the flight trainer of this sheikh, and so he's the one who allowed us to bring the issue to his attention. So one word could mean success or disruption or failure of a project. And mainly when it is not your language. Reliability, of course, ethics and values, accountability, and personal relationship based on mutual respect. In that project in Abu Dhabi, another big problem of more than $10 million value, we were not able to get out because you know that in project, when you have a contractual client, customer, and the end user that are not the same, if they are not aligned, sometimes is an additional problem for us, who are in the middle. In that problem, in that case, it was like that, and therefore the contractual customer who was thinking that we were right, but could not oblige the end user to accept some pieces of equipment. And after months of discussions and so on, we could only get out of the problem because of personal respect and reliability. With the project manager of the counterpart, we sit in the room, we looked into each other's eyes, and we said, I trust you if you do that, and I replied, I trust you if you do that, without writing anything, without saying anything, and just based on the word, that I assure you in the Arab world is not so easy. And at the end of the day, just this personal relationship was much more effective than any other contractual relationship or meetings or lawyers and so on. Because we have also to remember, you may remember that Julius Caesar, the ancient Rome leader, had a wife, and about his wife, it was said that she had to be not only honest, but also to appear to be honest. And also about our reliability, we not only must be reliable, but we have also to be seen by others as reliable. It's not enough to be. And it is one of our most important assets, the personal liability. Sure. I am sure that this is something for your culture normal, because you, even in the public life, you put much focus and stress on reliability, on personal accountability. In Europe, in Italy, it is not like that. And so it is better always when we talk over there to underline this statement. The first time that I was here, as I told you, in the early 80s, working in Pittsburgh, I was really surprised at discovering the fact that even for us, strangers, foreigners, known by nobody, we were given utmost trust. And the first time that it happened, that I went on the Saturday night in one big department store, and at the end I found that I had left the credit card at home, and they said, sorry, I have just a check with me, and I have a couple of, because we were trying to organize the house and so on. I said, okay, I will bring back all of these items, because, you know, give me a check. And I was astonished. Give me a check Saturday night, and they accepted, said yes, because here everybody is considered as honest, as trustable, as reliable, until it shows that it is not. But the time that it is shown as being unreliable, it is forever. He or she could not recover. And I like very much this situation. I would like very much that these were all over the world, but unfortunately it is not. Consistency. Consistency is really a point that allows us sometime to find in our, not only in our contracts, but also in our public life, but to find bad faith or mistakes and so on. I always take into consideration this statement by Karl Popper, the liberal philosopher from Austria, who died not so many years ago, that consistency cannot certify the truth, but inconsistency and contradiction certify the falsehood. So in our project, where we are dealing with the counterparts that we have reasons to think that they are not so much open to us, searching for inconsistencies could be a good mean to look for problems, mistakes, and mainly for bad faith. Creativity. When I first look into the 46 elements of competence of IPMA, the one on which IPMA competence certification is based, the one that most surprised me was creativity. I am an engineer. Fantasy is not one of my skills. My son, every day, who decided when arriving at the time of university, I will do everything but engineering, just because of the example that he had at home. I said, bah, creativity. Probably I will concentrate on the other 45 because this is not for me. But since I am curious, I said, but if representative from, at the time, 45 people, representative from these countries, have decided for creativity, probably a reason is there. And therefore, with the team members of some project of ours, we said, let us see whether in some cases, without being aware of that, we found the way out of problems due to creativity. And with a big surprise, we found many cases, many examples in the past experience, that at that time we did not realize, but as a matter of fact, there were no methodologies, no systems, no procedures, no protocol, but just a bit of fantasy of creativity. Creativity means also a bit of craziness, a bit of curiosity, a bit of reverie, because creativity means destroying the past. And I think that Shirley this morning has given evidence of the fact that also project management did the contribution to destroying the past, because as a matter of fact, project management is a revolutionary technology because it contributed to destroy the old organization structure with the hierarchical levels, with departments not talking to each other and so on. And so project management was born also from creativity. You know, this gentleman, he said, crisis is the best blessing to arrive to people accounting because it brings progress. From crisis, inventive power, discoveries, and big strategies are born. So, the suggestion, don't waste the crisis. The crises are the best opportunity to have a demanding project, new challenges, and for the project management to be on stage. And also he said, it is necessary a new way of thinking in order to solve problems created by the old way of thinking. Again, call for creativity. And another, a different call, but I like very much, is by Robert Kennedy, one of the minds of my generation in Europe and in Italy. There are those who look at things as the way they were and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not. So we as project managers ask always why. But I think that we should ask often and often why not. Because asking why could not be enough to get out of the challenges. And it is a particular pleasure to me to make this quotation here in Dallas. Because I was mentioning to some friends days ago from Italy that excuse me, I remember when I was younger, the morning of the 23 of November, 63, the university, the professor entered the room, 500 students, and he said, please, stand up, 1 minute of silence. And this is something that really was important to us for our culture. And being here in Dallas is an additional reason for me to be honored to be here. Passion. Passion is something that is not in the competencies, but one challenging project cannot be managed without passion. That logo is the logo of the Olympic Games, Winter Olympic Games held in Italy in 2006. But I think that there should be in each project manager office. Passion lives here. Passion by which we have to deal with our project. And it might happen that the impossible is easier than the difficult. This is a statement by a music director, the music director, conductor of the La Scala Orchestra in Milan, Daniel Barenboim. Years ago, you may remember that he wanted to afford a challenge that was meant as impossible, to have an orchestra made 50% by Israeli musicians and 50% by Palestinian ones, playing together, once in Palestine and once in Israel. And we succeeded. And that was one of the major events that were recorded, to have this orchestra with the components from the both cultures performing together. So something that was considered as impossible became actually as a possibility. I recall this is the culture in which I have been born and grew up as a professional. I don't want that the reference to Peking doesn't matter, but what is important is that as long as we are doing things for the passion of things itself. A project manager should be so much involved and committed and consider the project as his own or her own because of the project itself. Not only because of our contractor relationship with our company, not only because of our job specification, not only because of the fact that we have commitment to our stakeholders, but because we have the passion to complete it just because of it, because the challenge is the project is a challenge to ourselves, is a challenge to me as project manager. And commitment. We must be committed. And we have to, I am a total analphabet in IT, so you could ask yourself why that feature, what does it mean? We will come later. But involvement versus commitment. Involvement is equivalent to reduction of non-conformities. That is search for quality, protocol, procedures, methodologies, and so on. But it is not always enough. We have to search for excellence. We have to go the extra mile. And this is something that in our team, in our project team, we must pretend from all the team members. The search for excellence, the commitment to excellence. A few days ago, I take the occasion, the opportunity of coming to Dallas. I like every some years to have my annual holidays in the United States that I like very much. And so this year I said, why don't to take the occasion and have also vacation? And so I had also a vacation tour before coming to here, my annual holidays. And in one hotel, in one holiday inn, I met a lady who really went the extra mile in their job. I told her, and I will, as soon as I will be home, I will write to the customer relationship in Holiday Inn management, because for some problems, not major ones, but she gave evidence of what does it mean to go the extra mile before being asked to do that. Because when the times come, and I, as a project team, I see that there is a problem to solve here and now. I cannot say, but the job specification, my job specification does not allow me to do that, or is a responsibility of somebody else. It's to be solved here and now. I shall take the authority or the initiative to do that. And this lady did that. I really have never seen, I am traveling a lot, a person in the hotel taking such an extra mile approach to the problem. This should be our target and focus. About the picture, in a recent conference, a professor from the most important economic science university in Italy told us, look, you have to be very clear that involvement does not mean commitment. And he said, for instance, your wonderful breakfast that I like very much, the chicken is involved, but the pork is committed. So don't forget that committed means something different from persistency, last.
Oh, yeah.
Never give up. One of the most important feature, characteristics that a project manager should give the audience, the stakeholders, the feeling that nothing and nobody could divert him or her from pursuing the project targets. You say, it is normal. Yes, but again, going back to the cultural differences and so on, it is not so normal. When I went to Abu Dhabi for that project that I already mentioned, I went just straight from Libya, but really, I just, there was an emergency, I was in Libya, my management told me, I have to go to Abu Dhabi. I went to Milano airport, I could not even go home, my wife brought me the luggage and we made the exchange at the airport, and I proceeded to Abu Dhabi because there was a meeting to change, the former project manager was going out for other business, and I was entering the picture as project director, so there was the exchange of information and so on. And we had this big meeting with some 30 people, all our people, all the customer, the end user, the contract customer, and so on. And we started, it was Ramadan period, so you know, during Ramadan, during the day, no activities are there. We started in the evening, the discussion. And of course, I didn't know anything because they told me, you go there and start to understand. And I was sitting there, and the discussion was going on. And the more time was elapsing, I was asking myself, what are they talking about? Because it was something nonsense. After 2-3 hours, the consultant engineer asked the people and said, okay, why don't you go home and come next day? And the project director of the client say, no, we continue. Do you want to continue, Mr. Mori? Yes. And at this time, repeated 3-4 times. At the end, 3 o'clock in the night, the consultant said, okay, you stay here and I go home and go to sleep. So everybody laughed and we went up. But at the end of the day, all this exercise was taking there 30 people for 5 hours, just, and the project director confirmed to me when we met afterwards, just to check whether I was persistent, whether I was preferring to go to sleep instead of going or staying there. So, never give up. Never give the stakeholders the idea that you can be tired. And so, this is and to be taken into consideration. Never give up. So, superior competent project management are the keys to survive in this ocean of threats, and considering that probably today the project management is the really only possibly real international profession. Thank you, and thank you also for remember that our main software tools are here and here in managing our projects.
Perfect. Questions? What was the most difficult country, cultural-wise, that you worked in?
The Libyan one. I forgot to say the Libyan one and after the Abu Dhabi one, because both of them had 2 features, unfortunately. that the client, after signing the contract, was not willing anymore to go on with the contract because of financial crisis, because they discovered that the contract was not the best one to pursue their needs, and therefore they didn't want to sit and negotiate the termination or, in any case, any other. But, for instance, in Libya, Gaddafi himself, and we discovered it afterwards, had given instruction not to give $1 of claim to the contractors. If you consider that the contract lasted from 2 to 3 times the original time, and they didn't pay $1 single of extra money, wow. You may understand. This is the most difficult situation that a project manager can live on. That is working for a project that is no longer a priority for the customer. That is absolutely bad, but it is an additional challenge.
You're getting even with him now, though, right? With the topic. You're getting even with him now.
Yeah.
Helping. Other questions? Sir.
Yes, with technology today, face-to-face communication isn't always required. But how important do you think it is with some of the topics you cover, trust and certainly building that relationship?
Communication, of course, when we talk about personal communication is something that lies under these topics, because it means to establish a way to have an effective communication, the right message arriving to the right people and being understood in the right way. Communication in general, of course, is an absolutely important point in the team with the stakeholders and so on, but this is one of the competencies that we need to develop. And considering also, as has been mentioned in some of the presentation, for instance, of yesterday, that the way, the new media are changing the way of making effective presentations. Apart from the social media, but staying in the project, you may consider how the email is being...
Oh my goodness.
Risk management.
So it's one of the most sensitive items that we should be giving utmost attention, because the communication, bad communication, could frustrate all the effort and make a danger any project.
Robert, thank you for reminding us that project management not just keeping up with stuff on software, it has a lot of other things that need to be paid attention to also.
So the project is being done by individuals.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's a fact. I don't know whether you know it or not, but this is decanter and wine glasses. Italy produces more wine than any country in the world. Therefore, it follows that Robert will know exactly what to do.